I didn't know my life was about to fracture the moment the laughter hit the walls of our living room. Not when the faucet snapped with a dull metallic crack. Not when the wine glass slipped from my hand and shattered at my feet. But when they laughed, really laughed, like I was the punchline to a joke they'd been rehearsing all night. I stood there with broken glass cupped in my palms, blood barely pricking the skin, while my husband of 8 years, Leo Jackson, leaned back on the sofa, smiling like this was entertainment he'd paid for. "Maybe you should get her toddler-proof wine glasses," Tasha said, smirking. "You know, the rubber ones." More laughter followed, sharp, casual, careless. I looked around the room. Leo's friends, all women who'd sat at my table, eaten my food, posted photos in my house, and realized none of them were looking at me as a person. I was a prop, a joke, a woman who existed to be laughed at. "You know what?" I said quietly, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "A real woman knows when she's not wanted at her own party." No one stopped me as I walked into the kitchen, swept the glass into the trash, and grabbed my jacket from the hook near the garage. Behind me, someone muttered, "Sensitive much?" The November air outside cut through my coat as I walked 6 blocks to Murphy's Pub, each step pounding out the same thought. How did I let it get this bad? Rick, the bartender, didn't ask questions. He just poured bourbon and slid the glass toward me. "My husband thinks humiliating me is funny," I said after the first burning sip. "Apparently, my existence is comedic relief." Rick shook his head. "People get cruel when they're hiding something." I was halfway through my second drink when my phone buzzed. "Mel, I'm sorry about tonight." Leo was out of line. Before I could reply, another message came through. "Can I call you? There's something you need to know." 30 seconds later, her voice was a whisper. She was sitting in her car outside my house. She couldn't stay. Not after what she'd seen. Then she said the sentence that split my life cleanly in two. "Claire, Leo is having an affair with his male boss." The bourbon turned to acid in my stomach. I stared at my reflection in the bar mirror. 35 years old, dark hair streaked with early gray, a woman who had spent 8 years shrinking herself to fit a marriage that had already left her. And in that moment, something cold and unfamiliar settled into my chest. Not hysteria, not revenge. Clarity. Because if Leo thought I was weak enough to laugh at, he had no idea what he'd just started. I'm Claire Jackson, 35 years old, and for most of my adult life, I believed love was something you earned by being agreeable. I wasn't always like that. When I met Leo, I was 27 and newly promoted as an operations coordinator at a mid-sized logistics firm downtown. I liked structure, systems, knowing how things fit together. Leo was the opposite, charismatic, effortlessly social, the kind of man who could walk into a room and make people feel like they'd known him for years. We met at a friend's rooftop birthday party, one of those summer nights where the city glows gold and everyone feels invincible. He told me he worked in marketing, climbing fast. I told him I liked order. He laughed and said maybe I'd keep him grounded. At first, it felt like balance. Leo was attentive in the beginning, texting me good morning messages, planning dates, introducing me proudly as the woman who actually has her life together. I mistook admiration for respect. I didn't notice how often the compliments were framed as contrasts. "You're not like other women," he'd say. "You're low maintenance. You don't get emotional over stupid things." I wore those words like badges of honor. We moved in together after a year, got married a year later in a tasteful ceremony his parents mostly planned. I paid attention to logistics, his family handled appearances. It seemed fair at the time. The small shifts came quietly. Leo started correcting me in front of people. Little things at first, the way I told a story, the way I pronounced certain words. If I bristled, he'd smile and say, "Relax, I'm just helping." His friends, especially Tasha and Gina, became fixtures in our home. Wine nights, brunches, casual drop-ins that weren't really optional. I noticed how the jokes always landed on me, how Leo never stopped them. Sometimes he joined in. "You know Claire," he'd say with a laugh, "she overthinks everything." I told myself this was marriage. compromise, humor. I told myself not to be that wife. Mel was different, quieter, observant. She asked me real questions about my job, my stress, how I was actually doing. Leo never liked her much, said she was too serious. By year 5, Leo was working directly under Erica, his boss. The late nights started then. Networking events, conferences, team bonding. He began talking about a potential transfer, Seattle, a promotion, opportunity. You should be proud, he said, when I asked why he was never home. I'm doing this for us. I ignored the way he stopped asking about my day, the way his phone was always face down, the way he laughed more with his friends than with me. I kept smoothing things over, kept believing if I stayed calm, supportive, undemanding, the man I married would come back. The party, the broken faucet, the laughter, the glass, that wasn't the beginning. It was just the moment I finally stopped pretending. After that night, everything looked different, like someone had adjusted the lighting on my life and exposed cracks I'd been carefully stepping around for years. Leo didn't apologize. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened. He scrolled through his phone at the breakfast counter while I made coffee in silence, the echo of last night's laughter still ringing in my ears. You left early, he said casually. You okay now? Now. As if humiliation had an expiration date. I didn't feel well, I replied, because honesty had never been rewarded in our marriage. He nodded, satisfied. Conversation over. That's when I noticed the patterns I'd trained myself to ignore. The way Leo took calls in the hallway and lowered his voice. The way his calendar suddenly had meetings that ran past midnight. The way his phone buzzed during dinner, and how he always angled the screen away from me. Tasha and Gina became bolder, the jokes sharper. So Claire, Tasha said one afternoon at brunch, swirling her mimosa, are you still doing that, what is it, logistics thing? Operations, I corrected gently. Right, she said, smiling thinly. Must be nice having such a predictable job. Leo laughed. She likes routine. No, I thought. I like stability. There's a difference. Mel stopped coming over as much. When she did, she watched Leo with a look I didn't understand then. Tight, concerned, restrained. Once, when Leo stepped outside to take a call, she leaned toward me. Are you happy? She asked quietly. I opened my mouth, and nothing came out. That night, after Leo fell asleep beside me, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Just once, a single vibration. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize. I didn't touch it. I told myself trust was a choice, but the atmosphere in the house shifted. Tension lived in the walls. Conversations felt rehearsed. Leo grew impatient with my questions, defensive when I asked simple things. You're imagining problems, he said once. You always do this. And the worst part, I believed him. I replayed memories like evidence against myself. Maybe I was too quiet, too serious, too boring. Maybe I'd stopped being fun. Maybe I deserved the distance. By the time Mel texted me that night, "Can I call you?" my instincts were already screaming. I just hadn't been brave enough to listen. Mel's voice sounded like it was coming from somewhere small and dark, like she was crouched in her car, afraid someone might hear her telling the truth. I'm outside your house, she said. The others are still inside, but I couldn't stay. I pressed my fingers into the bar top, grounding myself. It's fine, Mel. I'm used to it. No, she said firmly. It's not fine, and it's about to get worse. There was a pause. I heard her inhale, shaky and deliberate, like someone bracing before stepping into traffic. Claire, Leo is having an affair. The words didn't land all at once. They scattered, sharp, disconnected pieces that took a second to register as something lethal. What? I whispered. With his boss, Erica. It's been going on for months. The room tilted, sounds blurred. My heartbeat roared in my ears so loudly I barely heard her continue. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you. I didn't want to be the one to break your marriage apart. But after tonight, after watching them laugh at you like that, I couldn't stay silent anymore. I closed my eyes. Images flashed uninvited. Late nights, unexplained trips, the sudden talk of Seattle, the way Leo had started treating me like an inconvenience instead of a partner. "Are you sure?" I asked, even though my body already knew the answer. "Yes," Mel said. "I have proof." My stomach clenched. "What kind of proof?" "There was a girls' night last weekend. Remember? Leo told you I was with Tasha and Gina the whole time." I nodded slowly. Erica showed up. They didn't even try to hide it. They were all over each other. Her voice cracked. I recorded it. I didn't know what else to do. My fingers trembled as I set my glass down. "Send it to me." "Claire, maybe you should think—" "Send it," I said. "Now." The video arrived seconds later. I watched my husband, pressing his body against another woman under club lights, his hands sliding with familiarity that didn't come from one mistake. The timestamp glared at me. Last Saturday night. The same night he'd come home at 2 a.m., smelling like cologne that wasn't his, telling me he'd stayed late to make sure Tasha got home safe. I watched it 3 times. Each time, something inside me cracked a little more, until the pain hardened into something else entirely. Cold, focused, awake. "Claire?" Mel asked softly. "Are you still there?" "Yes," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. "Thank you for telling me." "What are you going to do?" I glanced at my reflection in the bar mirror. A woman I barely recognized stared back. Older, sharper, no longer confused. "I'm going home," I said. "And I'm done being the joke." I walked home with my coat pulled tight around me, the city lights blurring as if my eyes refused to focus on a world that had suddenly betrayed me. The house was dark when I arrived. Too dark. I tried my key. It didn't turn. I tried again, slower this time, like the lock might recognize me if I was gentle enough. Nothing. For a moment, I just stood there on my own porch, staring at the door I'd unlocked thousands of times, the door I'd painted myself last spring, the door I'd believed meant home. Then it hit me. Leo had changed the locks. My breath came out in a shaky laugh that sounded dangerously close to a sob. Through the window, I saw Milo, our 3-year-old golden retriever, pawing at the glass, tail wagging, whining softly. The only living being in that house who had never mocked me, never rolled his eyes, never made me feel small. And now I couldn't even reach him. I called Leo. Straight to voicemail. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. My voice surprised even me. "Really, Leo?" I said into the cold night. "Changing the locks? I pay half the mortgage. I'll be back tomorrow with a locksmith. We're going to talk about this." I spent the night in a roadside motel, staring at a stained ceiling, replaying 8 years of marriage with brutal clarity. Every joke at my expense, every dismissal, every moment I'd swallowed hurt because I thought love meant endurance. By morning, shock gave way to resolve. At 9 a.m. sharp, the locksmith arrived. "You sure you live here?" he asked, checking my ID against the address. "Yes," I said calmly. "My husband had a tantrum." He chuckled and got to work. 20 minutes later, the door opened. The house was empty. No Leo. No Milo. Just a note on the kitchen counter, written in his careful, infuriating handwriting. "Gone to think. Took Milo since you clearly can't take care of yourself." That was when grief burned off completely. Humiliating me was one thing. Cheating was another. Locking me out was cruel. But taking my dog? That crossed something irreversible. I picked up my phone and called Tommy Rodriguez, a friend from college who'd left law enforcement to run a private investigation service. "She took your dog?" he said, incredulous. "That's low, even for someone like her." "I need to find them," I said, "and I need to know everything about Erica. Give me 6 hours." I hung up and sat at the table, hands steady, heart quiet in a way it had never been before. This wasn't about anger anymore. This was about reclaiming what was mine. While I waited for Tommy's call, I did what I'd always done when things spiraled. I analyzed. Leo was impulsive, but not random. He liked control. He liked being admired. When he panicked, he ran toward places that made him feel powerful, not safe. That narrowed it down quickly. His mother lived 2 states away, too far for a dramatic midnight escape, which left one option. Erica. Tommy called just before 3 in the afternoon. "I've got them," he said, "and you're not going to like the full picture." I put him on speaker and sat back down at the kitchen table, the note still sitting where Leo had left it, as if he'd wanted me to see it, to hurt. Erica Jameson, Tommy continued, 40 years old, divorced twice, lives in a downtown condo, drives a BMW, works out at Titan Fitness on 5th, and, this is the important part, she has a reputation. For what? I asked, even though I already suspected. Sleeping with subordinates. You're not the first spouse who's asked about her. My jaw tightened. What do you mean? Last woman she was involved with was married too. When her husband found out and raised hell, Erica suddenly pushed for her transfer to Seattle. Same pitch Leo's been floating to you. The room felt colder. So Leo wasn't planning a promotion, I said quietly. He was planning an exit. Looks that way. I closed my eyes for a second. Where are they? Riverside Park, dog area. Erica's there too. She brought backup. Backup? 2 gym guys, big, probably meant to intimidate. I exhaled slowly. I'm coming. Tommy hesitated. Claire, I'm not going there to fight, I said. I'm going there to get my dog. We parked across the street and watched. Leo was sitting on a bench, phone in hand, looking relaxed. Too relaxed. Like someone who thought he'd already won. Milo ran back and forth inside the fenced dog area, ears perked but restless, stopping every few seconds to look around. He was looking for me. Erica stood nearby, arms crossed, flanked by 2 men who looked like they'd been carved out of gym equipment catalogs. Friends? I asked. Muscle, Tommy said. Paid or favors owed. We waited until Milo wandered near the fence. Then I whistled. The sound cut through the park, sharp and familiar. Milo's head snapped up instantly. His tail went wild. He barked once, twice, and ran toward the sound, paws scrambling on the grass. That's when Leo saw me. "Claire," he shouted, standing abruptly, "stay away from us." I crossed the street slowly, hands visible, heart steady. I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. "I just want my dog," I said. "You can keep everything else." Leo scoffed. "Milo's better off with me. You can't even take care of yourself." I smiled faintly. "Is that what Erica told you to say?" His face stiffened. "Or did you come up with that while you were grinding on her at the club last Saturday?" Color drained from Leo's face. "You don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone. "Want me to play the video?" Phones around us started coming out. Curious dog owners. People sensing drama. Erica stepped forward. "You need to leave. Leo doesn't want to see you." "Oh, I know," I said calmly, "but I'm not here for him." One of the muscle guys moved closer. "You want to take this somewhere private?" I glanced around. "No, public is perfect." Milo slipped through a gap in the fence in the confusion and barreled into me, nearly knocking me over. I dropped to my knees, laughing through tears as he covered my face in frantic kisses. When I looked up, Leo was staring at me, not with anger, with fear. And for the first time, I knew I wasn't the one losing control. The adrenaline didn't last. It never does. By the time I got Milo back into the car and drove away from the park, my hands started to shake so badly I had to pull over. The world blurred, not from tears, but from the delayed impact of everything I'd been holding together by sheer will. I rested my forehead against the steering wheel and breathed. In, out. Milo whined softly from the back seat and pressed his nose between the seats, grounding me just enough to keep me from spiraling completely. That night, after I fed him and locked every door twice, the silence of the house settled in like a weight. Leo's things were still everywhere, his shoes by the door, his jacket on the chair. 8 years of shared space now contaminated with lies. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the video again. The way Leo's hands moved without hesitation, the ease, the comfort. This wasn't a mistake. It was a parallel life. Just after dawn, the doorbell rang. A process server stood on my porch, clipboard in hand, wearing the faintly smug expression of someone who enjoyed other people's misfortune. "You've been served," he said. Leo was suing me. Emotional distress, harassment, unlawful pet abduction. He wanted the house, half my retirement. Milo. I laughed once, short and hollow. That was the moment everything finally collapsed. Not outwardly. I didn't scream or throw anything. But inside, the last illusion cracked. The hope that Leo might still care about fairness, about decency, about the damage he'd caused. I called Janet Morrison, the lawyer who'd handled our home purchase years ago. Sharp-eyed, direct, a woman who didn't waste time comforting people who needed strategy instead. After reading the papers, she looked up at me and said, "He's going scorched earth." "He took my dog to hurt me," I replied quietly. "This is just the continuation." She studied my face. "Tell me everything, and I mean everything." So I did. I told her about the affair, the video, the park, the years of subtle humiliation, the way Leo had chipped away at me so slowly I hadn't noticed until there was almost nothing left. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Do you still have the video?" she asked. "Yes," I said, "and I have more." Because after the park, something in me had shifted. I stopped avoiding the truth. I started paying attention, cross-referencing dates, saving screenshots, noting patterns in Leo's stories that didn't line up, watching the social media posts he thought were harmless, and realizing how much they revealed when you stopped taking them at face value. Janet leaned back in her chair. "Claire, this isn't just a defense. This is leverage." I nodded slowly, exhaustion settling into my bones. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something close to grief. Not for my marriage, but for the woman I used to be. The one who believed love meant enduring disrespect quietly. That version of me was gone, and I was standing at the lowest point of my life, alone, betrayed, publicly attacked by the man I'd built my future around. But somewhere beneath the hurt, something steadier was forming. Resolve. By Thursday morning, grief had finished its work. What remained was clarity. I sat across from Janet with my laptop open, folders neatly labeled, timelines mapped out like a case study instead of a heartbreak. I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't rushing. I was methodical, because chaos had already had enough of me. "Start from the top," Janet said. I pulled up screenshots. "Leo's been posting about team dinners for months. If you line up the timestamps with Erica's Instagram, they're at the same places, same nights, every time." Janet leaned closer. "That rooftop bar?" "Girls' night," I said, according to him. Next, I opened hotel receipts, Erica's credit card records Tommy had obtained legally through industry contacts. Same downtown hotel, same room type, twice a week, 4 months straight. Janet exhaled slowly. "That's not an affair. That's a schedule. There's more." I showed her metadata from photos Leo had posted on our anniversary, tagged at a restaurant at 8 p.m., but taken at 6:30. We'd left early because he said he had a headache. Erica's location data put her at the Marriott downtown at 7:45. "She left our anniversary dinner," Janet said quietly, "to meet her boss." "Yes." Janet closed the laptop. "What's your endgame, Claire?" 3 weeks ago, I might have said reconciliation. I'd spent years believing endurance was loyalty, that staying quiet was maturity. But then I remembered the laughter, the lock change, Milo's confused face at the window. "I want the truth on record," I said. "And I want him to understand that humiliation doesn't disappear just because you redirect it." She nodded. "Then we go public." That afternoon, my phone rang. "Mel, I heard about the lawsuit," she said. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be," I replied. "It ends tomorrow." There was a pause. Then, "Leo is planning to bring Tasha and Gina as witnesses. They're going to say you're unstable, abusive." I closed my eyes briefly. "Of course they are." "I won't lie," Mel said firmly. "I can't do this anymore. If you need someone to testify, I will." "That means losing Leo forever." "I lost him the moment he decided you were expendable." When I hung up, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt calm. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing. Tomorrow wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about punishment. It was about reclaiming my voice in a room where silence had cost me everything. Friday morning arrived gray and unforgiving, the kind of weather that stripped everything down to its sharpest edges. The courthouse felt smaller than I expected, but the room was full, too full. Faces I recognized from Leo's work circle, friends who'd liked our anniversary photos, people who'd laughed along without knowing what they were laughing at. Leo sat at the opposite table, posture confident, jaw set like this was just another meeting he expected to win. Tasha and Gina whispered behind him, dressed for performance. Erica wasn't there yet. I didn't look at Leo. I didn't need to. The opening statements went exactly as predicted. His lawyer painted me as unstable, over-emotional, a woman who couldn't accept that the marriage was over. The park incident was framed as aggression, Milo as theft, Leo as the long-suffering husband forced to protect himself. I sat still and listened. When it was Janet's turn, she didn't raise her voice. She didn't dramatize. She laid out dates, evidence, timelines, affair, deception, lock change, pet abduction, false accusations. Then came the witnesses. Tasha went first. Tears, trembling voice, practiced sympathy. She described the party, claimed I'd thrown a glass in rage. Janet didn't rush her. Did you see her throw it? Well, it broke. That's not my question. By the time Janet finished, Tasha couldn't keep her story straight. The judge noticed. Gina contradicted her on 2 key points and admitted she'd never personally seen any abusive behavior. Then Erica walked in. Perfect suit, perfect hair. The confidence of a woman who believed charm could override facts. She described me as hysterical, dangerous, claimed she was only trying to protect her employee. Janet waited. Then she played the video. The room changed instantly. No commentary, no interpretation. Just Leo, my husband, pressed against another woman under club lights, his hands familiar and unashamed. Erica's confidence collapsed in real time. Hotel receipts followed, credit card records, phone logs, screenshots, metadata, patterns that could no longer be explained away. When Mel took the stand, the room went silent. She didn't cry. She didn't exaggerate. She told the truth about the jokes, the erosion, the affair, the night everything broke. When Leo's lawyer tried to imply she had feelings for him, Mel answered calmly, I respected him because he treated people with decency. My testimony isn't about affection. It's about 12 years of watching someone destroy the person they promised to love. The judge didn't need long. Leo's claims were dismissed. The house was awarded to me. Milo stayed with me. Legal fees, his responsibility. But the real fallout happened outside the courtroom. Erica's phone rang nonstop. Leo's friends avoided eye contact. Tasha and Gina left without speaking. Leo stood there, exposed, diminished, finally seen. And for the first time in 8 years, I walked away without carrying his weight with me. I didn't feel victorious when I walked out of the courthouse. I felt quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm has finally moved on, leaving behind wreckage you'll have to sort through, but also clear air you didn't realize you'd been starving for. Milo trotted beside me, leash loose, tail high. He didn't know anything about courtrooms or lies or betrayal. He just knew he was back where he belonged. As I reached my car, I heard shouting behind me. Leo was on the courthouse steps, voice raised, face flushed, surrounded by reporters who'd caught wind of the scandal spreading through his professional circle. He insisted it was all lies, that I was manipulating everyone. No one listened. The narrative had already shifted. The charming husband, the successful employee, the man who had it all together. Gone. I drove home, unlocked the door that was finally mine again, and stood in the quiet living room where laughter had once cut me down. This time, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like space. I had no idea. You always seemed so strong. I'm sorry we didn't see it. And that's the lesson I didn't know I needed. Strength doesn't always look like standing tall. Sometimes it looks like staying quiet too long. Sometimes it looks like surviving until you finally remember you're allowed to leave. I didn't rebuild my life overnight, but I started small. I stopped apologizing for taking up space. I stopped minimizing my needs. I stopped mistaking endurance for love. If you're listening to this and something feels off, don't wait for proof of betrayal to justify your pain. Disrespect is already a reason. And if you're the one doing the laughing at someone else's expense, understand this. The truth has a way of finding daylight. As for me, I'm not bitter. I'm not broken. I'm free. And for the first time in 8 years, that feels like enough.